Hey y'all, back with another video. Today we're going to do part 3 of this series that just came upon us. I want to talk about porosity. Okay, porosity is what it sounds like. The porousness of your hair. So it's a term that's used to describe how porous the strands of your hair are. There are two main types of porosity. So you're going to have either low porosity hair or high porosity hair. Low porosity means low pores, I guess, if you want to think about it in a really basic way. So that means that your hair strand is not very porous. It does not have many holes on it. So think about if this pin were your hair strand, right? This is one hair strand. You could have little holes all along the surface of the hair strand. If you have a lot of those holes, then you have high porosity hair. If you only have a few of those holes, then you have low porosity hair. And let me tell you the differences. Your hair strand is like this circle, and this, say my finger here in the middle, this is the inner layer of your hair. That inner layer of your hair is very fragile. So everything around that inner layer is designed to protect it. So if you have a lot of holes in your strands or you have high porosity hair, that means things can penetrate your hair strand more easily through those holes, and it can get to that inner layer of your hair, which is very delicate. That's why people with high porosity hair are most times sensitive to heat. They have to moisturize more than others because things get in really easily and things also leave really easily. So things like heat application, because there's so many holes in the strands of their hair, that heat gets to the cortex or the inner layer of that hair strand much quicker and much more easy than it does somebody who has fewer holes. So they're going to be more susceptible to things like heat damage. In the same way things enter very easily through all those holes, they leave the same way. So if you're talking about something like moisture, so you know, water is the best moisturizer there is, and a lot of times you hear about the lock method. So people will put water on their hair or wet their hair, and then you'll use an oil on top of that damp hair to seal in that water. And that's an effective method of moisturizing your hair. The thing is, if you have high porosity hair, that water is still going to evaporate and escape from your hair more quickly than it would someone who has fewer holes or lower porosity hair. So somebody with high porosity hair might be able to moisturize their hair once a week and their hair strands are completely fine. They have no adverse effects. That works for them. Somebody with high porosity hair is not going to be able to get away with that. They're going to have to moisturize frequently because the hair is literally going to dry out. So those are some of the differences between low and high when you think about things like heat and moisturizing, which both can be damaging if they're not done the right way. Low porosity hair is just the exact opposite if you want to look at it in terms of moisturizing. When you moisturize that hair, it's harder to get the moisture into the strands, but once it's infused into those strands and it makes its way to that inner layer, that cortex, when you have low porosity hair, that moisture is going to stay there and maintain itself much longer because there are just fewer escape routes. There's fewer holes on the surface of the hair for that moisture to escape. That's why things like heat are really effective when you're deep conditioning, because the heat is going to lift up all of the kind of shingle-like layers on the outer layer of your hair, and it's going to expose that inner layer. So all that moisture, that deep conditioning, is going to be able to penetrate and get in there. That's why you hear people tell you to rinse with a cold rinse, because the cold water makes those shingle-like layers lay down flat, which traps in everything you just infused into your hair. So someone with low porosity hair puts a deep conditioning treatment on their hair, sits under the dryer. All those little layers are going to be lifted and opened up, exposing the inner layer. That deep conditioner is going to be able to get really get in there. Then you come out, you rinse with cold water. It's going to lay all of that surface down flat, which is going to allow light to bounce off it so the hair will look shiny. And internally, the hair is going to be really healthy and do well because it's got all those benefits from that deep conditioner just sitting there on that inner layer, you know, and it's just soaking it all up. So it's going to stay sealed in. And just like other things I've talked about, there's always a range. So low porosity here, high porosity here. You can fall anywhere in here. So always understand that there's a range. So you may notice characteristics from both descriptions that I give, and that's because, like I said, you can fall somewhere on that line. So just to continue to give you guys some comparisons so that you can, I guess, understand your own hair a little better, because porosity just is what it is. That's just simple. You know, it's how many holes are on the strands of your hair, how much your hair can absorb or does absorb because of that. So that's straightforward. But other characteristics that'll kind of help you identify maybe what's going on your own head, and this is, again, part of the story. This is one identifier, so this is not the end all be all. But for instance, if your hair takes a really long time to dry, it could be an indicator that you have low porosity hair. Because it takes so much for things to kind of penetrate those outer layers and get in there, it takes longer for the hair to dry. It's gonna take longer because that hair is actually, that water is actually in there, and it's gotten in there and it's kind of like locked in. So for the heat to then penetrate enough for it to dry the water that's in there, it takes longer. So if you have highly porous hair and you have lots and lots of holes on the surface of your hair, even though water can get in there really easily, so can heat and dry it up really quickly. So if your hair dries fast, you probably have high porosity hair, and if your hair dries slow, you probably have low porosity hair. That's the same reason why high porosity hair can feel dry and frizzy, because things that go in but they come right back out. So that's why heavier products, creamier products, products that are a little more dense tend to work better on hair that is highly porous versus hair that is low porosity, because it's hard for the stuff to penetrate. So what happens is it just starts to build up. So you get a build up as opposed to like these products penetrating the hair like they're able to do with highly porous hair. So that hair can take a heavier product sometimes. I can't think of a lot of other differences. Those are kind of like the basics, and you can kind of just use that and extrapolate. If, as always, you have questions or anything like that, or I'm not explaining it clearly, just leave it down in the comments and I'll get back to you guys. And if it's enough, you know, like confusion, I'll do a follow-up video. But I think that's pretty straightforward, and that's pretty much it. So we've done thick versus thin, coarse versus fine, and now high porosity versus low porosity. So I think that's a good little package to kind of put together. I'm gonna make this a playlist. So you can go to it, you can reference it, and kind of get a better understanding of your own hair, because you can be anywhere on the range of any of those 3 hair characteristics. So you really do have to put some time and energy into learning your own hair, especially if you're going to be trying to DIY it. You really want to learn your hair and understand how it functions and why. Please let me know down in the comments if you have any questions, if you like the way that I describe things, if you understood it, if things are clear, and if this helps you when you're doing your own hair. Because if it's not helping, then I can come up with another format of things that would be more helpful for you guys. So yeah, I think that's it, y'all. That's it. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, supporting, and subscribing. If you have not subscribed already, please go ahead and do so. If you haven't visited my website, you can also head on over there. It's kaywright.com. And until next time, guys, bye.